As he understood, if he gets it right there. But yeah, in the end, he compromised. Well, the result, the outcome was successful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Fabiano, of course, you lose the game, you're very disappointed, but he knows he was drawing that position. Sure.
I think it's extremely difficult for him to get back. I mean, in 10 minutes, knowing that he had really very close chance there.
Yeah.
But of course, with such a short time on your clock, it's extremely difficult. But what about today?
Sorry, yes, what about
today? Because so far we had the repetition of opening of game 12, but still there is a little difference. And black has this pawn on a4, which can be a problem, I think, later on. I didn't like this move c6, because after takes...
I thought this was the critical move.
I also think it's the critical move, but simply after rook c8, you have no knight d5, because of queen e4. This is the problem.
Okay.
And actually it would force white to take on e7, take, and then you're going to lose the pawn on c6. Yeah. So this is something white just simply cannot be playing.
Okay, so...
That's the issue. So after rook fc8, what does Fabiano has in mind? To play queen b5? But this is scary on the king side. I mean, queen f3.
Queen f3. Queen f3 hits the c6 point. It's terrible. Okay, let me have a think. I mean... Okay, worst case, we simply give the pawn and play knight d5 or something, but obviously...
You can't. After that, you're just lost. No, not lost, but it's just... Well, it's just a pawn down.
No, I don't mean in this position. I mean,
sorry.
I mean castling
you want a
c6,
castle.
knight d5. Okay, I still think... I agree. I think black
we
is
have
fine.
A move, queen c4.
c4. Okay, covers...
Queen c4. Queen c4 I like, because definitely his aim is to put his knight on d5. But what is he going to do on queen f3? He wants to go queen d5. Very tricky.
Yeah.
Very nice way of solving the situation.
Okay, let's go back. Let's just have a think. Queen c4, because it
very important.
For one moment, it feels a little flimsy. I wonder if we can do something here.
What about black playing rook a5?
Okay,
actually, everything is about the d5 square right now.
This reminds me of, well, all those Sveshnikovs and all those Najdorfs I've played over the years. d5, the d5 square.
Yeah, the d5 square is the issue. If I mean one day black is going d5, then you don't want to know what's happening to white. In other hand, it's a big question whether after rook a5, how can white deal against the move queen f3, and with all the attacks on the long diagonal. Well, bishop b6 is crucial, I think. That's the main question. And let's say queen f3, if white can play queen e4. But after queen e4, black is going to be taking and rook b5.
Oh, rook b5.
Rook a6 actually is also quite good. I just wanted to attack and play d5.
Yeah.
But I think rook a6 is just at least as good.
Okay, but let's go back. Our bishop d8 played. Clock time's 15 for Magnus, 14 for Fabiano.
Yeah, it's pretty balanced for the moment. But
okay, but that's a compromise.
I don't like from black point of view. Of course, it's a very simple idea. Knight e7, he just wants to get rid of the c6 passed pawn.
So we play knight d5?
But I think it has to be played. And after...
is there some forced draw if... Okay, so for example, queen f3, castles...
e4.
And
I think it will be e4 and
he wants to sacrifice.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's his reasoning.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily... I mean, it can be very unpleasant for white, also knight e5, knight g4.
Well, sorry, if I can just go... Okay, I was trying to get tricky with rook c6 and queen c... Something more forcing, but okay, there's always knight e7 checks. But anyway, no. Yeah, e4 as well. So I think this may be his thinking.
Well, now there are a lot of moves, of course. Knight e4 is also something to consider after the bishop left.
Okay, hang on.
Again, queen f3, I think.
Yeah, why not?
And actually, there are some tricky ideas, I think, that black can take.
Knight d5 played.
Knight d5 played.
Yeah.
So let's see what he has in mind after queen f3, right? Bishop h5 is also something to consider, of course, for black, and after king e2 to go e4.
Yeah.
It looks not so funny for white.
And 95 coming. 90.
Yeah,
oh, well, okay. We'll bear in mind 97 check, of course, but
first black will
first
be
we'll give
check
a check.
there. I mean,
yeah. Do you know what? In some ways, why is this a surprise that black is okay? His pieces are better coordinated.
Whose?
Black's.
Blacks? Well, I don't know. I like very much white's position, but I don't like the king of white. I mean, everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. You should just go to A1 and then fine.
Then you're fine.
Right?
But the king completely messes it up.
Yeah, but actually black's position is so good because of the white weak spots on G4, H4, H3 and the problem of the E4 move. Actually, I don't know exactly what... We have a move, do we? No, bishop A5 is not played yet.
Not yet.
But what can white do? I just don't understand, really. E4? I mean, is knight F4, or what is it going to happen? Well, bishop F4, but I don't know, it looks...
Bishop F4?
Well, it's not that I'm so happy about it, but I just don't see another move. And we have E4 immediately.
Huh.
But actually, after E4, I would be... Well, of course, F4 is not necessary.
F4?
Yes, but after F4,
Ooh.
the problem is...
Okay, be my guest.
Yeah, I understand. I understand your point.
So he's gaining a big tempo with knight E5.
I was wondering for a second to go back on C3, but actually it's not possible because of knight E5.
Knight E5 wins immediately. Okay, so I think you have...
And goes knight D3.
Exactly, so I think you have to castle.
No, actually it's not over yet, because black has compensation, but probably not more than that. Sorry?
Okay, so I think after E4, I think you have to castle. And then after one of...
That's why black didn't play bishop A5, so he can play knight E5 immediately.
Okay, queen H3 and knight F3. Queen H3. Oh, you give a check. You can give a check. The knight's on D5 is on priest. It's over immediately.
I don't really know what...
So E4
Fabiano
is very problematic. We could... I tell you what, this could be 2-0. Easily.
Huh?
He's on the edge.
That's true. What about C7?
It feels like I should be taking that.
With what? With bishop?
And now somehow knight E5.
Queen D5?
No.
But also queen E2 was possible, but okay, let's go. Queen D5. Knight F3. Ah, no, rook C7. No. If rook C7, then queen A8 check first.
Queen A8 check. This is the problem.
I mean, some things can go right for white too. But no, that's how it seems that it's, it's really shaky with white. So let's say knight D3 and then king E2.
Okay, give a check.
Queen F3, king D2.
And now...
Well, white can say that he has a piece up. It's already something.
It's already a big something, but I play rook B8. Not
well,
so
knight B5,
clear.
Knight B5 is possible. Well, I understand that it's not very nice because takes and queen E2 at the end.
Ooh.
That is not nice.
No.
Because after knight moves somewhere, then queen B2.
Well...
Not very funny.
Not very funny. Fabi down to... is that 9 minutes?
Yeah.
I can't quite see, actually.
9.
9 looks like 9. 9 plays 13.
So
Feels like...
c7 takes, knight e5 you go.
Well, should we go back to the position actually on the board?
This is the position on the board, e4. Deadly dangerous for white.
Well, do we need to just simply prevent knight e5? So,
well, we talked about bishop f4, I think. You can try to go bishop d4.
It's gone c7, bishop takes c7.
No, I think there was actually nothing else to... I mean, otherwise you're just having a ridiculous
And knight
position.
e5, here we go. It's down the main line. Oh dear. Critical.
Well, queen c3 maybe. What about queen c3? Of course, it's not so much fun to stay in the pin, but actually it is very critical at this point, because everything will depend where he's going to put his queen. But queen c3 actually I like.
Yeah. Now, give a check. Yeah.
King d2. Rook b8, right? Attacking, let's say.
We'll keep going
in
as
other
before.
hand, now I can go rook c2 because the rook is on h1 is not hanging.
Well, if I want to grab material, then of course I could go...
To c1? You wanted to grab?
No. I was after rook b8, rook c2. Of course, I can play...
Rook b7.
Rook b7. If I take that knight, it's game over.
Yeah, it's not easy. What else can white do? Queen d5 actually was the move. Queen d5, we were checking. I mean, that's kind of a logical way of saying, but actually even rook b8 is possible.
Straight away.
Yeah. Just to keep it in mind, this little rook c7.
And even after castle's rook c7. Yeah. So tricky.
Even after rook c7, white can go queen d6. But it's definitely more dangerous for white.
I wonder, instead of rook c7, could we play queen h3?
Queen e4. Queen
just
e4.
simply queen e4, hold it. Okay,
well, okay, rook b4. There are always things, I understand.
Simply a blunder, yeah. Okay, so
from which side?
My point of view.
Yeah, because
I forgot about
because of queen g2.
No, I forgot about queen e4. Okay,
killing.
so we do have to take on c7. Yeah.
So queen d5 looks, of course, the best option, but we checked. What did we play? We played knight d3, but actually I went king e2. I think maybe I should go king d2.
Yeah, but we had this before, didn't we? King
no,
d2.
but king d2
no,
immediately.
Then I had a check.
Yeah, so I don't even understand why I didn't go to d2 immediately.
Okay. Then we should definitely play rook b8 instead of checking.
Crazy tension. Sitting there and Fabi has to decide where to go with the king.
Time situation, 6 minutes remaining for Fabiano, 13 minutes for Magnus.
Crazy.
I was just upstairs, and Fabiano's parents have arrived in town, and they're up there looking at the board in a very tense way, I can tell you, understandably. So rook b8, can we find a sensible move there?
Is it on the board? No.
Not yet.
Knight d5. Knight.
Oh, so he's got knight e. So what's going on? Wait a second, his queen's on prise. Knight e7 is possible. Yeah, we spotted knight e7.
We guessed the square, right? We just, not with the knight.
Okay.
Wow.
So now, ooh. Wow. Well, if you can get away with that, that would kind of solve a lot of problems.
Okay, but what happens king h? Yeah,
king h7. Ah, now this is awkward because the queen might not have a good square. If he goes to d4, there's a fork. If there's...
Well.
Well, what? What? Queen b5. What do you want?
Yeah, there is not much of an option, no?
Yeah, but then, okay, a few things.
Knight d3.
There's a check. There's also, just bear in mind, rook b8,
Rook
please.
b8.
I don't know which way round you want to do it, but this looks very, very nasty.
Well, I guess both of us would like to take the black pieces, right?
I think that goes without saying. Just in general, you know, if you look at a position and you look at the two kings and you look at black's king and you look at white's king, and on that basis alone...
Yeah, it's, I mean, this king, I don't know ever if it reaches a castle or actually it's worsening his position.
King h7 played very quickly by Magnus. He'd obviously foreseen the tricky knight d5, but actually this looks even worse than the options that we were considering, because the queen simply doesn't have a good square. If queen e2, then, well, you check with the knight and you take on d5, for example.
Well, this does not look very promising for white, softly saying.
4 minutes for Fabiano. Down on time, down on position. I can't even see a compromise move. This is the problem. What about knight? Can he play...
Knight e7 anyway?
Queen f3, I suppose. Knight e7, queen f3, is that winning?
I don't know what Fabi is thinking. I think I will leave you to go.
Am I...
And you come back for later.
I'm sorry. It's my turn to be booted out. You did. It was a pleasure as ever.
Well, it was fun to discuss these lines. Okay. Possibly not too much fun for Fabiano.
I'll let you and Anna take us through the rest of the game. Thanks.
So now it seems Fabiano is really having a very difficult moment, and within minutes we might see a very sad Fabiano, because he's very much on the edge of having problems in this game again. And if he's going to be losing 2-0, then it's...
The match would be over, basically.
Well, basically it's almost the impossible we are dealing with. That's what he has to deal with. It is definitely something very, very, very unpleasant, softly saying, what he's having on the board. You can see on his face also he's very unhappy. Magnus is feeling extremely comfortable. Well, especially this position and having 10 extra minutes, it is something.
Incredible. 2.5 minutes left for the challenger, and he is in trouble. He has an extra piece, but his king is going to be suffering. As you mentioned, I heard that you liked white's position if it wasn't for the king, if the king was on a1, but it cannot really travel to that a1 square. Unfortunately, that's not how chess works.
Well, I think this is where things are good chances flying away from Fabi to get the crown.
That's a heartbreak for the American, since he has been doing so well during 3 weeks of the World Chess Championship match. Hasn't lost a single game. Magnus can say the same, of course, but it seemed that Fabi, except for game 1, which was a miracle escape by the challenger, afterwards he has been doing very well, and he had a few more chances. Fabiano Caruana resigns. It's 2-0 for Magnus Carlsen.
Fantastic game by Magnus. He played extremely well, though Fabi could not give a good challenge. He was too aggressive in playing this c5, c6. I mean, as he couldn't make knight d5 work immediately, it meant that it was c5. I think it was simply not a good move, because it was too early. Before having his king castle, after castle, here c6, I think it was too much. it was opening up the position too much, and black had simply so much play immediately. So he should have gone for the solid c takes d6. And, well, it seems like he couldn't handle having the opportunity to play and fight well. Magnus was absolutely right to do all these draws, even it was unusual and not understandable for most of us, that what he did in game 12. But it seems like he was so sure of himself that he will be outthink Fabiano in the rapid games. But I'm kind of surprised that it seemed so easy.
So
of course,
smooth,
it's never so easy, but from outside we can say that it somehow went very smooth. And actually Fabiano could not really get over on game 1, especially that he felt that he had very close in having drawing chances, and simply he couldn't recover in 10 minutes. And in this game he was completely unbalanced.
Yes, that's the problem with, of course, the rapid playoffs and how the system works, that there's only 10 minutes between the two games, as you mentioned.
But I also think, for example, this opening, we had in game 12 as well, this h4, h5 structure. And really it was interesting that during the game when analyzing, I was absolutely not a favor of having this with white, because there are so many weak points and squares appearing after h4. And checking with the engine was so optimistic about it. And maybe this is also something, one of the hole maybe the only hole in Fabi's preparation it was, that in this specific line, after the knight e7, playing h4, maybe objectively it has a point. The engine has its point, but he couldn't deal with it in a practical position. Somehow in the game, he couldn't really play it well, this structure. And in both games, he went wrong in different ways. But in one game, he castled long, and that was the problem. In this game, he left his king. So somehow he couldn't feel the dynamics of this position, if at all it is good for white.
And another situation is, of course, extremely difficult for Fabiano. Magnus Carlsen is half a point away from defending his title. If he makes a draw in game 3, the match is over. We will not see 4 games, because 2.5 points is the one that's needed, 2.5 points, and Magnus Carlsen keeps his crown. We will be back with that game, but before that, we have an interview with our special guest, Lucy Hawkin.
Lucy, how is it for you, the tense? How did you feel to make the first move? A lot of players there, they are nervous. How do you feel about it yourself?
There's an incredibly electric atmosphere there. It was so tense. It was one of the most exciting 10 seconds ever. I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to say that I could stay and do all the moves for them, but I was only doing the first move.
Actually, in Great Britain last years, they are trying to involve chess in education system. What do you think of it, and what is your opinion? Does it helpful for kids?
I think it's very exciting. I think the possibilities of chess in education are very exciting. There's some really interesting research showing that chess for young people increases creativity, it helps with spatial awareness, logical deduction, maths, reading, but also chess is very strongly associated with children with very high IQs. But there's some interesting research that shows that chess will help kids who are less motivated to progress with maths, can also be helpful for kids with ADHD, and can even show marked improvement in kids with special educational needs. So I think that shows it's really across the board. It's a universally beneficial educational intervention.
I know that your father, he didn't play maybe chess professionally, but he still was involved with this game. Is that true?
That's right. I used to play chess when I was a little girl. I would play chess with my father. And of course, because I was a little girl, I didn't realize he was a genius. And I couldn't understand why he always won.
I know that you have some small thing, unique with you today. Can you show it to us?
Yes, I've got this picture here, which is an oil painting of my father with my 2 brothers. He's playing chess. They're playing chess together. My brothers are there with my father. Now, this painting actually hasn't really been seen since around the 1980s. We just found it again very, very recently. And it's really beautiful. And you can see the 3 of them engaged in this activity. I think my little brother is playing chess and my older brother is looking on. And perhaps he's helping my little brother with his game.
Were you playing very often with your father, yeah?
Yes, I did. I played chess with my father a lot. He taught me to play chess. And as I said, I was just always mystified by the fact that he always won. I didn't understand it.
Thank you so
My
much
pleasure.
for your attention.
Magnus Carlsen starts the rapid break, tie break with 2 out of 2. He only needs half a point more to defend his title, and he's going to have the white pieces in Game 3. It seems that he's almost there. He has almost done it. We haven't expected this crushing start from the world champion.
Yes, it's his day. It's very clear, and he can say that everything went according to plans, right, after Game 10. It's very interesting to see him coming back to himself, to really perform as he usually used to perform, right? And so it was very interesting to see Game 1 especially, how it got unfolded, because that was kind of interesting, the opening choice, the middle game, the crucial moment he pointed out, he felt it, he was spending quite a lot of time on that point. And it seems like that he's much more here in the game right now. And it's a shorter game, which I think he's very happy about, that the game is not lasting 5, 6, 7 hours. And so Game 1 was somewhat very important already for the match. And it seems like for Fabiano, this opening, actually towards the end of the match, there is an opening preparation which is actually leaving him not with opportunities, but somehow he's getting lost in this kind of position. At least he did in Game 12 and also now in the second game of the Rapid.
Yes, it's interesting that it's the same variation, same Sveshnikov with 97, and both cases it was troublesome for Fabiano.
Yeah, I mean, the pawn structure, it was something that it was not possible for him to handle. And I think it's so complicated, and it's so rich in plans, in ideas, where you put your king. After every move, there are different things happen, new opportunities arise. And I think simply it's much easier to play it with the black pieces, because with the black pieces, you have a much more straightforward idea and plans, that you have your problem having your pawn on h5, which can be vulnerable, so you have to look after it. But once black is really protecting, and once he's coming out with his pawn to e4 and the g6, bad knight or passive knight can be coming into the game to e5, or just the threat of it, it is very difficult. And actually, Sveshnikov itself, it's very much that kind of opening, that it happens many times that you think you're doing fine with white, and actually somehow the dynamic changes, and those king side pawns of black start marching f5, e4, and some of the white and black squares also can be very bad or very weak from white point of view suddenly, especially after the pawn is e takes d5 taken in move 7. So it is a very difficult opening, and Magnus showed why white has to be so careful in making pawn moves already in the early part of the game on the king side, not castling but still making weaknesses.
I was also checking in the meantime the hashtag Carlsen Caruana 2018. Of course, most of the comments are about Magnus keeping his title. For instance, Cielito Sanchez saying 2-0 now with Magnus leading, only a draw to retain the crown. Suran wrote, yes, looks like that Carlsen will keep the chess crown for another 2 years. Almost there. Half a point is missing, but most of the tweets are about this. And of course, you can still send your message to us by using the hashtag Carlsen Caruana 2018. I think no one, even the biggest Magnus fans, expected this impressive start, 2-0, and only half a point away from defending.
Well, I think not many people expected that it was a scenario that 2-0 as a start for Magnus, but it was an alternative, of course, as he's an exceptionally good player in rapid. And it's not only that he's very good. In rapid, he has all the self-confidence that he can make it, which is very important, because that's what I felt in the classical game part of the match, that somehow he was unbalanced. He might have been frustrated with the opening preparation, also admitting it that Fabiano's preparation was better. He out-prepared him practically, so he didn't really get the games he wanted. He didn't get advantage. He didn't pose too much of a trouble for Fabiano, and that must have been quite annoying. And from this point of view, when you don't get anything out of the opening and you see your opponent is much better or better prepared, it seems like the match is very long, right? Because every day you're going to meet him with the white or with the black color. In other hand, in rapid, he didn't lose his self-confidence. I think from the beginning he knew that 6-6 is not a bad result at all. I mean, he's going to be more the favorite in the rapid if they enter into the playoffs than in the classical game. And it shows that he really understood where his strength is. And that's why he decided game 11-12, even though, of course, it doesn't mean that we will understand his decision, but he seems to be right, what he did, at least from reality point of view, as he started with 2 out of 2. And now there is a very, very little chance that Fabiano can come back to kick back, because of everything, right? I mean, after 2-0, it's only 1/2 a point missing for Carlsen.
Out of 2 games, so
to keep
even if he lost game 3, a draw in the last round in game 4.
Well, of course, if Fabiano would win game 3, I mean, then it would be another story, because again, after that, Fabiano is playing with the white pieces, then anything can happen. But this game, he shouldn't lose.
Yeah, he shouldn't have
Magnus.
lost game 2.
No, but
now game 3, he can go very safe with the white pieces.
Yeah, so it will be very interesting to see whether he goes c4 again, which I would think he will, because now that the draw
E4
is enough.
And some variation. The
and
Petrov,
E4 is also
very drawish.
Yeah, E4 is also a good choice. So it is very difficult for Fabiano that how he will be able to create chances for himself, because being 2 points behind and draw is enough, it is almost, we can say it's an impossible journey for him.
Yes, unfortunately, it's very unlikely that the challenger can bounce back. We are about to start game 3. Magnus Carlsen is already at the board, and we are waiting for Fabiano to return to the box as well. Of course, also interesting to know that Magnus Carlsen, in general, should be very confident, not only about the rapid and blitz skills he has, but playoffs in general. I believe he hasn't lost a playoff tiebreak since 2006, which is an amazing record.
Yeah, somehow he has a great mindset for that, I think. He very much feels the positions, the time, the crucial moments, and where the opponents are going to go wrong, or what kind of decisions in positions they have to make decisions, and it can be very difficult for them. And I think if we can go back to, I think Tisda was saying it.
Game 3 has just begun, and it's E4 indeed. The Petrov would have been a not so lucky decision for Fabiano. He has to win this game, therefore he switches to the Sicilian as black for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's a situation that he just has to come up with interesting ideas, unexpected ideas, and somehow confuse Magnus that he might get unbalanced for whatever reason.
The Maroczy setup is what Magnus chooses, c4, and later he can play d4.
Yeah, it will be, of course, extremely difficult even to create some middle game where it can be chances for black. Because at this level, if you're playing with the white pieces, usually it should not give you very big difficulty to make a draw. But okay, let's see what we are going to see in the game. Knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. And, well, actually, it's not a classical way of Maroczy, because actually the pawn is not on d6 yet, so black can possibly play bishop b4 objectively, but I think after bishop b4, white will just go bishop d2, so Magnus is ready to exchange every piece in order to get one step forward to keep his crown and make the draw in this game. He will definitely not take any risk. He will just play by intuition these positions and looking forward to stabilize his position. So it is very difficult for black how to play for a win, right? Knight f6 is, of course, a possibility. For now, this is not possible to play e5 because of queen a5. In these positions, there is always this trick, but this is not going to be happening. And black played bishop c5. Bishop c5. So the question is how... Oops, sorry. This is the position we have. So now Magnus is possibly thinking about taking on c6. This is, of course, one of the ideas to be extremely solid. And I think this is something he might be hesitating. It is a very straightforward telling that I don't want too much in this game. On the other hand, he's not shy, as we saw with the draw first in the games, which was not even necessarily so obvious. So knight c6 is something I think that he's considering. Also knight b3 is another way of reacting, and then black will be playing either bishop a4 or going back most likely to e7. But let's see what he's going to be up to.
Jonathan Tisdale, Grandmaster Jonathan Tisdale from the press room is saying on Twitter, I was going to joke that Magnus seems to let loose as soon as he doesn't have to keep score of the game. As you see that they don't have to write down the moves, but the arbiters do it for them. And then he adds, of course, but it is probably that in rapid he has no time to generate doubts and his intuition is more fully switched on. We have definitely witnessed the world champion not being so confident about his game in the classical part of the match, and now he is in full beast mode, that is for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He played in a very good style game. And actually we have knight c2 on the board. Interesting that he chose this line, but it's nothing risky for white. Knight f6, knight c3, I guess, or black will be playing more to knight ge7, trying to go out of that more classical way of playing these structures. And yeah, it is a very, very difficult moment for Fabiano. I mean, it is impossible to turn things back after having 2-0. You're playing with the black pieces. But on the other hand, it must be said that he did not win a single game in the match, right?
Yes.
I mean, not in classical nor in rapid. Of course, it would be a fantastic turn if he would be able to punch back in this game. But definitely he will need the help of Magnus as well.
Yes, it's unfortunately for the challenger is highly unlikely, and therefore, for instance, some of the predictions are already about Magnus winning yet another game. For instance, Grandmaster Jonathan Rosen, he tweeted, I predict 3-0, and then Magnus stands on the table and roars.
Well, of course, I mean, when you have to win, And this is the case of Fabiano, and I think he's still under the shock of having 2-0, that he lost both games. I mean, it can easily be that he's going to lose this game again, because what can he lose, right? I mean, draw and loss, it's exactly the same thing. So
yes,
it is a scenario. Yeah, absolutely.
How would you play this variation if you had to go all in as black?
Well, first of all, in one hand, you have to play like a normal game, but of course, Magnus will be going for simplification. I mean, later on, he will be playing, I think, bishop e3, trying to exchange the bishop. With black, well, I think knight c6 or knight e7. Queen b6 maybe is a try. As for now, bishop e3 is not possible because the b2 would be under attack. But I would think that white would be going queen d2 and later trying to go b3 and bishop b2 and also knight c3, where knight a4 could be unpleasant threat. I like generally putting the queen on b6. And so queen b6 is an idea, knight f6, knight e7. But if he goes just the patterns, then I'm not sure he will be able to create for himself any idea of... he went knight f6.
And knight c3 immediately played by Magnus Carlsen, castle kingside. And
bishop e3. Yeah. Yeah, of course, it's a very solid game for white, which Magnus chose to play. And it is very difficult decision what black can do. Because, of course, if he's just taking on e3, takes, he's going to play d6. White goes queen d2 and be able to just to develop bishop c b2 castle. He will put his rooks to d1 and c1. It would be the biggest surprise if black could do anything. So black played b6. b6 is played by black pieces. It has an idea that if, let's say, white would be taking on c5, which I doubt that he will do, but he may. Even here, of course, it's very difficult for black to play for a win, as white can go queen d2. Let's say later on he's going to go b3. White is going to have rook on d1. He will develop bishop e2 castle. And the d6 square is also something that can be annoying for black. So it's a question how white wants to continue, but for the moment he keeps the position by playing bishop e2, bishop b7, they're developing, and probably white will be just castling here. But of course, bishop c5 is always an option. And after dc5, let's say white would be going queen d6. Then, well, queen a5 is the move. Now black would be threatening with knight e4, castle. But I mean, it's very difficult for black. Even I'm not even sure that black is not worse. But probably he can go rook d8 with the idea to kick out the queen with knight e8. But we have castle. Of course, he wants to keep the position for the moment. And black is not playing d6, which is completely understandable. He wants to keep his pawn on d7 and played queen e7. Black has practically no problem, but that's not enough.
That's the problem too, right? It's too stable.
That's not enough in this position to create chances. So that's why it is difficult. I'm expecting queen d2 with white from the white side. Thereafter, I think black will try to go knight e5 possibly to open up his diagonal with the bishop and try to attack on e4.
Indeed, queen d2 is on the board.
And queen d2 is on the board. These are all very typical moves in this line. And later on, the rooks will be coming into the game, most likely rook to d1 from f1. The other one will go to c1. White can also play a3 and b4 to strengthen his position. And when the e4 pawn is very much attacked, then possibly f3 is also something White can be playing. It is extremely difficult to crack White's position. Usually it can be a long game. After f3, Black can go king h8 and g5 sometimes and g4, but I think we'll still have to wait for that until it happens. So rook d8. Black is preparing kind of to be playing d5 at some point in a good version after he can move his knight, let's say, to e5 and then play d5, open up the diagonal. So it's a logical way of playing. But I think White will be going rook fd1, and already after that White will be really, or bishop c5 immediately, because White is really preparing to exchange the bishop, and after that to play queen d6, also trying to exchange queens. So I'm curious if he goes rook ad1 or rook fd1, because that might be also a question. And he goes rook fd1. Rook fd1. Well, it's definitely not a position which you want to have after losing 2 games. It is very difficult to create chances. The best he can do is try to not to exchange pieces, Fabiano, maybe knight e8, trying to stop the possibility of exchanges on d6. Knight e5 is something I would consider here. Yeah, I would think knight e5 can be.
He has just played knight e5, exactly as you
Knight
mentioned,
e5.
Judith.
Black's position is pretty active and all the pieces are standing perfectly healthy. The queen on e7 and the rook on d8 is definitely preparing the possibility that eventually Black can be pushing d5. But of course d5 is going to be enough only to equalize the game. But the main question is whether Black can put any pressure on White. So Magnus can spend some time, he can make a decision whether he wants to go on simplifying or if Black can make Magnus hesitate on anything, that's the maximum so far he can get out of this situation, I think.
Well, Fabiano at least has managed to make Magnus sink into a deeper thought process. He's once again back to this interesting, a new way of Magnus poses, I think, because we have seen Magnus in so many tournaments, but this one, when he's holding his head with 2 hands, almost covering his face, is not the usual Magnus.
Well, now White can, for example, take on c5, and actually he just took, because after queen c5, Black will be going, White will be going, I think, queen d4. So actually Black took b takes c5. It's very important for Black that for the moment queen d6 is not possible, because takes, and then Black can take a pawn, which, well, after a pawn is a pawn, right? So White would not go queen d6, but he can go the simple queen e3 with the idea of later on just doubling the rook and being extremely solid. The c2 knight is kind of important, because if Black would go knight c6 and knight d4, which might be coming later, that Black goes back knight c6 at one point, not now because e5 would be coming, but just showing the idea that he can go knight c6 later at one point, play e5 and go knight d4. This can be one of the plans for Black, and probably he should try something like this, because if you go d5, then actually that would be not something Black can be playing for a win. So let's see how Magnus will decide if he goes queen e3 or he wants to play f4. That's also possible. It's straightforward, immediately pushing back the knight, and then black would be going back. Actually, this is possible that he can do this, and after that, queen d6. This can be a very tempting way of continuing the game and simplify the position.
That can explain why he was reaching for the queen and then he pulled his arm back. He's, of course, still calculating whether f4 or queen e3 is a better move. Once again, this way of almost touching a piece and then pulling his arm back is also not a very Magnus-like chess. And it showed some doubts during the match, especially in the classical games when he was hesitating in a couple of critical moments. Of course, there's lots of tension. And even though he has won the first 2 games, Magnus knows that he still has to be precise in order to not to give chances for Fabiano.
And he goes f4 exactly for that reason, that if knight c6, he just goes queen d6, and he's not going to lose that game. Black, I think, probably should go to g6, and exactly for the reason that queen d6 is not possible, because the f4 pawn would be under attack. So after knight g6, queen e3 happened, and finally d6 is played in the game against e5. But it was actually important for white, for Fabiano, to have f4. And in this way, at some point of the game, he can have more power on the long diagonal in this game. So white played rook d2, very natural, trying to double the rooks on the d file, which will make, of course, things very hard for black to create any chance in this game. Because white's position is extremely tough. It's like a rock. You can't break it. You can't do anything if white does not want to do anything, or he's not ambitious to create something. Possibly black can go bishop c6 with the idea later to go queen b7, but for sure white is going to go rook d1. And if, let's say, queen b7, which may be too early, but probably black should be playing queen c7 first, and then later on to go rook d7, go rook d8, but I think we have another move.
a6 has been played by Fabiano.
Yeah, a6 in principle can be against the move knight b5 at some point, even though for the moment I think it was not so important because the e4 pawn is under attack, so there is not immediate circumstance that white could be playing a6.
Rook a d1 by Magnus.
Of course, rook a d1 was the...
c7.
Queen c7, generally speaking, I like, because if black will be playing rook d7 defending the d6, the queen will be able to have it on b6 or a5. But moreover, actually, the idea behind queen c7 is, I think, that one time knight will be able to transpose to c6 and really later on cover this d4 square playing e5. At least he has to try it, right? He has to try something. I mean, it seems his position, playing the World Championship, practically with very, very, very slim chance, but at least he has to try it. He has to try it. He'll not have such a moment for at least for 2 years that he can ask Magnus that or challenge Magnus by any means for the crown. And well, he has to just try everything he can. For the moment, bishop f3 is not possible because it could be a healthy move. But until the knight is on g6, it is not advised because black would be playing knight h4, which for the moment it's important for black to have it.
Magnus has played b3.
Well, also actually d5 can be something Fabiano is looking for.
h6.
But for the moment he's trying to make all the stable moves, which can be helpful in a later phase of the game. And h6 is that kind of move that you're happy to have it for whenever there is a back rank problem can occur. You have h6 just in case. And yeah, for the moment the game is pretty balanced.
According to the reports of Tarjei, the Norwegian camp, or some of the Norwegian camp, has already started celebrating after game 2 in the VIP area. Of course, the fans of Magnus must be very happy. And on the other hand, what a heartbreak for the challenger. I was going to mention one of the tweets about this. Akshay said, months of preparation and analysis with the team and playing your A game in every match. Suddenly one day you blunder some moves and all things fall apart. Got to feel for Fabi.
Well, that's exactly the case what is happening. But let's face it, if you're the challenger, you have to beat the world champion, right? And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it so far. He couldn't win. He couldn't convert his impossible possibility in Game 6, right?
Game 6 and Game 8. So he had two chances, basically.
Yeah, actually, I think Game 8 should have been something very painful. And that's how I felt, that in that position, having a great advantage on time, great advantage on the chessboard, just the style of the position was also something that the initiative, you feel comfortable, you feel it, that it has to be in your hand already, you're so close. And that you allow Magnus to sneak out from that one, that was a horrible mistake. And actually the mistake he made, this crucial h3 move, already before Rook d1 was maybe not so perfect. But it's very annoying because you ask yourself, if I don't win this, then what?
Yeah. Although, of course, Magnus was kicking himself after Game 1, but that was the start of the match. It felt like it was isolated from the rest of the match. So Game 1, Magnus Carlsen didn't win a completely winning position. He had more time on the clock. He was completely winning. He didn't manage to convert it, but from then on, Game 2 and the rest of the match was very balanced, with Fabiano having chances in Game 6 and Game 8. And yeah, I also think that Game 8 was more painful because Game 6 and mate in 36, only the engine pointed out the mate in 36, but Game 8...
On the other hand, we have some interesting stuff until we were discussing this. After h6, g3 happened, which prepares white to play bishop f3. But on the other hand, in some cases, it can be a weakness also. Black played rook d7, bishop f3, rook e8. Interesting that he did not go to d8, but he went to e8. And, well, I think what we were talking about, once Fabiano will have to push some pawn moves. Now I think actually he might be playing for d5, which actually it's maybe threatening. So let's say if just white will play a3, I just make a stupid move, which is, of course, it will not happen. But maybe d5 is already something can be played.
Knight to e7, he's still preparing.
He went queen f2 and knight e7. So we are talking about the plan which we discussed previously, that black in the long term, he most likely wants to go to c6, then play e5 and play knight d4. And that's why I think his rook is important on e8, because he might be taking with the e-pawn if there is an exchange on d4. But on the other hand, he also might be thinking to play d5. So both options are possible, but for the moment, queen f2 was very important, actually, to go out of this possible d5 and d4. Because if whenever black is going to be pushing d5, obviously white will, or most likely white will be pushing through with e5 afterwards. So let's see, after knight e7, what is Magnus is up to. He has 14 minutes. And Fabiano has maybe 18, I'm not sure if I see it correctly. Well, now it's a question.
18.5 minutes for Fabiano.
There is a concrete idea for white, for example. He can go e5. And after e5, if d takes e5, white can take bishop takes b7, queen takes b7, f takes e5, and after rook d2, white can play rook takes d2, and knight d7. So probably this can be not easy for white, because the e5 pawn can be vulnerable in this position. And in the next moves, maybe black can go knight g6 and attack, while also the queen would be standing quite well, controlling the long diagonal. But let's see what white played.
Magnus played
h3, which is kind of a strange move to me. And black played rook d8.
Now bishop g2.
Well, of course, these pawn moves can cause problem for white only once the position will be opened by d5 or by any other means. But that's the most likely that d5 can be. So, but in this position, if let's say black goes d5, then I think white is just playing e5. And white is kind of prepared for it, because after knight would be going back to e8 is not something that you want to play with black so much. I mean, if knight e4, then probably... Well, for now, white cannot really take the pawn, because there is a pawn hanging here, but I think it's not possible to take it. If queen c5, then black would be giving a check. So let's see what is happening.
Fabiano goes knight c6.
Instead of d5, we have knight c6 on the board. And he's kind of ready to play e5 eventually. Though maybe in the next move he might be even thinking to go knight b4. Because as the queen left the e4 pawn, it can be something, let's say king h2, just to show the idea. Knight b4 can be a move. It's not that he's threatening with anything, but maybe he can try to provoke Magnus to play a3 or something. Then he might be going back. But the main idea, generally speaking, to play e5 one day, I think.
What's good for Fabiano is that he is managing to put some time pressure on Magnus. He's down to 13 minutes, but the position is very stable for white. The Maróczy setup is, of course, famous for being solid and stable.
Well, also the question is whether Magnus wants to go at g4 at one point, or it was only prophylactical moves, of course, h3, because after h3 he was able to move back his bishop to g2. So the g4 square is not a possibility to be used by black playing knight g4. So this way white is safe against those moves.
Kendrick is saying on Twitter that this isn't going to happen, but if somehow Fabiano Caruana made this comeback, being down 2 games, the movie would come out in 2020.
G4.
Oh, there's a move?
Yeah, g4 was
G4,
played.
so Magnus is going for it. He wants
And
the third
a5.
win.
Actually, I'm not sure he's right at all. It's very strange that I thought he will not go for g4.
Do you think it's too much?
It's kind of strange that he was going into this very solid position, and now he plays these pawn moves, h3, g3, g4. It is kind of extremely interesting. For example, now if white would be going rook d3, then knight b4 would cause serious problem for him, because white cannot take this knight because takes, and when the knight is moving away, then bishop e4, I mean the e4 pawn is under
Welcome to the 2018 World Chess Championship, a match between the current world champion, Magnus Carlsen, and his challenger, Fabiano Caruana. Today is the final day. Playoffs since 12 games haven't brought a single decisive game. I'm Anna Rudolph, your host, and our chess expert is once again Judith Polgar, the greatest female player of all time.
Hi. It is so exciting to be here today, especially.
We are live from London at the college where the match has been taking place for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of exciting chess, fighting spirit, but still no result, no decisive result happening in any single game. This is the first World Chess Championship that is so close that it goes down to playoffs without anyone winning a classical game. How do you see that, Judith?
Well, I think we're seeing an exceptional match from many points of view. It's first of all that I think we never saw such a close match from point of view that in rating points there is only 3 rating point difference between the two players, which is practically nothing. It's only 1 game if Fabiano would have won in the classical game, and he would take not only the lead in the match but also the ranking. He would be number 1 suddenly. So this is something very special, and this is the reason why actually we are seeing also so many draws and so balanced match, that none of the players could make force such a mistake from the other side that they could complete the full point. Of course, there was this famous game 1 where Magnus could have been winning the game, and also Fabiano had in game 6, which was not very much a human opportunity.
Made in 36.
But generally speaking, we are now dealing with a match which will make, I think, the chess world different, because I think there will be and has to be some change of rules, change of something, so it could be more appealing for the media, for the people who are not such a big expert on chess, because we had quite a few interesting moments of the match, if you're looking at it from chess point of view. But I think we are going to get back everything on this specific day, what we didn't got the decisive games in the previous 20 days, right, in the 12 games. So I'm very much expecting today that the tension will be unbearable for the players, and I think actually in the whole building, which is quite big, I think everybody is so excited. Like sometimes you may forget to breathe because it will be such a tension, I think. At least that's what I'm expecting. And of course, as I was a top player for quite a few years, and I played chess, competitive chess, more than 3 decades, I can still, of course, feel completely the nerve-wracking moments for the player, what they might be going through in their mind, that it's not about the chess knowledge 100% about today. Today is about how did you sleep, how do you feel, how the stars are standing, and so many small details, how your intuition works today, what happens in game 1, whether you're winning and that's how it's going to be spoiled to a draw, or already the first game will be decisive. So every little slightest detail does count now, and both players know it, that this night will be a huge difference how they sleep, or they sleep at all, it depending what will be the outcome.
We are very curious to see the players. They will be soon arriving here in the players' box, the soundproof box, where the match has been taking place. A reminder on the format of the playoffs is that, first of all, we have 4 rapid games with a time control of 25 minutes plus 10-second increment with each move. If there is no winner after 4 rapid games, no result, after 2-2, we would move on to blitz mini-matches. Each mini-match consists of 2 games, 1 with white, 1 with the black pieces. If still no result, if there's still no winner in the mini-matches of blitz games, 5 mini-matches we shall see. After that, Armageddon, sudden death, that will be the final game. I don't think we will get there. That's a bit too much. We may have a winner after the 4 rapid games. Magnus Carlsen won the rapid portion in New York against Sergei Karyakin. The first 2 games there in New York were drawn, and he won game 3 and game 4. We shall see what happens here in London.
Well, it's very clear that after game 10, which was extremely interesting, maybe we can call the most interesting game of the match, with a lot of tension there, and every game it was changing the evaluation of us here in the studio, but also when you take a look with engine, it's very, very, very complicated. And surprisingly, after that, Magnus kind of decided that he really wants to go on for the playoffs, and decided in game 11 that with the white pieces, he's not going to play for anything special. He opened with e4, with being not very ambitious, which was kind of not a big surprise, but a little surprise to me. But I think what made the whole world make a big shock in some way, it was game 12 when he was playing the black pieces. And actually Fabiano played very nervously and made serious mistakes, which gave the upper hand for Magnus in that game. But the mindset of Magnus was so much on focusing just to make a draw, that even though that he had a fantastic position that you cannot even dream of practically, he immediately in the first second when he could offer a draw officially by the rules, it was move 31, he just offered a draw. He was not interested about putting pressure on Fabiano in that game. He just wanted to move on to today's game's playoff because he has all this self-confidence that now this is his time to score.
That was indeed the case the last two games, that his mindset was to just head for a playoff. So many people have been criticizing Magnus Carlsen for this approach, including elite players. I'm not going to read out all the tweets, but I was going to mention Grandmaster Yannick Pelletier's tweets, because he's basically summing up what was happening on social media. He said, shocking, disappointing, Kaisa's punishment. Only Carlsen knows why he offered a draw. We can try and guess his reasons, but let's stop judging and condemning him. He'll answer tomorrow. It's a tweet from yesterday, obviously. If he doesn't convince, he loses the title.
Yeah, I mean, that's very clear that he's being attacked by many of the people for the reason that he offered a draw. But let's analyze it a little bit. Why is that we are criticizing him for this, right? I mean, he's the world champion. He knows what he's doing. He has his strategy. So we can't really blame him completely in principle by the fact that he offered a draw. The reason is why chess players and professionals are really surprised and shocked, because first of all, it's a trademark of Magnus Carlsen that he never offers a draw. This is rule number one, and right, we're looking Magnus Carlsen, not the principal question whether a draw offer is good or not. So the world champion practically never offers a draw. I heard some people discussing also that, well, how did he do that? Because he never does that. Did he do it in Norwegian or in English or how it was? So this is one. And the other thing is, you know on a high level that whenever you get a chance, you don't let it go. You take it. And this was something that we consider, that he had such a chance to press Fabiano without too much of a risk, that most of us who were never sitting in Magnus's place, sitting there playing for a title and keeping his title, we would think that we would be moving on and put extra pressure on Fabiano. But as his mindset was completely ready already after game 10, that he wants to make 2 draws, or at least he's happy with those 2 draws, he was, I think, not even paying attention. He was not even focusing in the game too much. It was so unexpectedly that he got such an opportunity by Fabiano, that he had such a position with the black pieces that, you know, it's like you want to play it yourself. So I think this is the reason, and really we are going to get an answer today, whether he was right or wrong, but definitely from looking at it from professional aspect, most of us think that it's a very, very, very surprising decision, which he may...
Kendrick is saying on Twitter that this isn't going to happen, but if somehow Fabiano Caruana made this comeback, being down 2 games, the movie would come out in 2020.
G4.
Oh, there's a move?
Yeah, G4 was
G4,
played.
so Magnus is going for it. He wants the 3rd win.
Actually, I'm not sure he's right at all. It's very strange that I thought he will not go for G4.
Do you think it's too much?
It's kind of strange that he was going into this very solid position and now he plays these pawn moves, H3, G3, G4. It is kind of extremely interesting. For example, now if White would be going Rook D3, then Knight B4 would cause serious problem for him, because White cannot take this Knight because takes, and when the Knight is moving away, Then bishop e4. I mean, the e4 pawn is under.
Solid, and Magnus is going for it. It's too much.
It's kind of strange that he was going into this very solid position, and now he plays these pawn moves, h3, g3, g4. It is kind of extremely interesting. For example, now if white would be going rook d3, then knight b4 would cause serious problem for him, because white cannot take this knight because takes, and when the knight is moving away, then bishop e4. I mean, the e4 pawn is under.
Magnus is going for it. He wants
And
the
queen
third
a5.
win.
Actually, I'm not sure he's right at all. It's very strange that I thought he will not go for g4.
Do you think it's too much?
It's kind of strange that he was going into this very solid position, and now he plays these pawn moves, h3, g3, g4. It is kind of extremely interesting. For example, now if white would be going rook d3, then knight b4 would cause serious problem for him, because white cannot take this knight because takes, and when the knight is moving away, then bishop e4. I mean, the e4 pawn is under.
It's too much.
Very solid position, and now he plays these pawn moves, h3, g3, g4. It is kind of extremely interesting. For example, now if white would be going rook d3, then knight b4 would cause serious problem for him, because white cannot take this knight because takes, and when the knight is moving away, then bishop e4. I mean, the e4 pawn is under.
Magnus is going for it. He wants
And
the
queen
third
e5.
win.
Actually, I'm not sure he's right at all. It's very strange that I thought he will not go for g4.
Do you think it's too much?
It's kind of strange that he was going into this very solid position and now he plays these pawn moves h3, g3, g4. It is kind